Hey guys, I'm gonna make this video about trauma. I'm gonna give like my personal testimony on like childhood trauma and talk about like what it kind of the behaviors that I like got into, growing older and as a child, teenager to adult, like before I got into the faith, because like my life has been like I feel like my life has been this like crazy roller coaster. Like it's a hell of a testimony for real. Like and I do recommend uh there's all kinds of therapies out there, by the way. Like I did psychotherapy, group psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness based cognitive therapy. There's dialectical behavioral therapy. And interpersonal, I'm not sure, but there's all kinds of different like therapies that you can do. And I'm gonna be honest, I feel like the group therapy was the best, because group psychotherapy, because um it's group related, and we'd all, like, anyone who wanted to share would share, and you can like relate to people on like some crazy shit, like the things that like you probably feel like you're alone in the world doing, or that you experience, you find out you're not, and that it's actually pretty common. And that's the reason, that's like the whole reason I'm like sharing these like testimonies and stuff. Like I'm trying to think of like the worst things that I did, or like the most horrible, awful things that I did that I could share with anyone. Because now that I'm a follower of Christ and I'm growing, I feel like if you knew, it's important that people understand what I endured and what it led me to like do before, prior to coming into the faith, right? So like ever since I was my family's dysfunctional. By the way, it's so dysfunctional. Like, we curse each other out and stuff. Like, it was, there's been all kinds of types of abuse. I don't want to like put anyone like specifically out there, but there's a lot of yelling and screaming, like ever since I came into this world, right? Ever since I was a baby. And like my mom has told me things that like piss me off about my dad, but I like when I that she witnessed when I was a kid, that I'm not surprised about. I don't really remember, but uh it makes sense. And in addition, I will talk about, I won't give his name out, but I had a stepfather, okay, when I was like from 5 to like uh close to 8 or so, something like, or he was dating my mother for a while, and then I believe that they were married maybe a year. But so this man, he was the warden, okay, the warden of the Powhatan County Jail, right? He was a warden. That means he was the head of a Powhatan County jail. All right. We lived in the warden's house, because when he married my mom and we all moved in together, we lived at the warden's house. Like, it was a really nice house, and it had its own space, and it was about like you could see the prison like over the hills. Like it was right there. So this guy was a narcissist, okay? Uh my mother, she worked a lot, and like so she left me with, and plus I was so bad. I treated my mom like shit. Like I spit in my sister's face. I would hit her. And it's weird. My mom told me that like no matter how much me and my sister got into it and stuff, like, cuz we were both screwed up. We got into it all the time. And like she would tell me that like if she told like my sister to go to timeout, I would be like, "No, mom, don't send Lindsay to timeout. I'll go to timeout," and I would like go into the corner for her and stuff. She said she loved that, but she said even though we were like horrible to each other, like we would do things like that. But my stepfather, he was so abusive, like verbally, physically. emotionally. Like he would I'm ADHD, right? And like I was in like small I would go in smaller classes and stuff. And I was on Ritalin back then. I'm not on anything now. I was prescribed Adderall later on, but I no longer take it. So if I seem like I'm all over the place and or whatever, that's how I am. And plus, I got to tell you all the things like that made me this way. But like I mean, I am, but I don't need medication anymore. Like it's funny if anyone out there has ADHD or suffers with it, and like you're taking Adderall, I hope you're like not abusing it. But I know how people are who are on it because I was prescribed it, and I have friends who were prescribed it. Like I hope you're not selling it, and I hope you're not giving it away, and I hope you're not abusing it, but just know that you don't need it. And like God made us the way that we are perfectly. We don't need medication. We don't he made us healthy too, by the way. We're not supposed to get sick. We're not supposed to get cancer or anything like that. So if you have any of that, pray it away, all right? Like the Lord wants his children to be healthy. I never get sick. I never get sick anymore. I didn't really before, but I never get sick. I never get headaches. I know people who get headaches all the time. They're sick all the time, and I never get sick ever. Like I never really have. But yeah, so as a kid, I endured all this like crazy. Like my mother, she would work and she'd leave me with my stepfather, and not only was this dude was like 6'3". He was a college athlete, college basketball player. He has 4 master's degrees, right? Like he looks great on paper, right? But he tortured me, and he would tell me like he would say that I was stupid, like I'm stupid. I was in like I was in smaller classes because I was stupid. I was retarded. He said my medication was for retards, and like I stopped taking it. Started giving my mom trouble about like taking my meds because he told me my meds were like for retards. There's retard medication, and like he would say my mom hates me, my dad hates me, everyone hates me. Like he would say, on a nightly basis, yo, this guy made me, I slept, whenever I spent the night at his house, I slept in his shoe closet. And sometimes he would bring like soup. I would never eat it. I never had an appetite, but he would bring me, he would abuse the shit out of me physically and then like verbally and emotionally for hours, and then it was bedtime. Like then he'd be like, all right, and put me in his shoe closet, or his closet, but there was a lot of shoes in there. But and he would bring up soup for dinner, like I'm gonna eat and sit it next to his shoes, like I'm gonna eat that shit. But he and I used to wonder, and I hated my mom. Like I hated her because like I thought she was telling him all these things that he was saying to me and stuff. And I wonder why she would leave me with this asshole like on a nightly basis, right? And you know what I didn't think about? As a kid, he would wake me up at the break of dawn, right? And he would pick me up and put me in the bed in the spare bedroom. And I used to wonder why he did that. But he did that to keep up appearances. My mother didn't even know what I was going through. Like she was already dealing with me at home, and as I believe, and well, I've talked to her since, and I was right, but I knew that like she was just confiding in an adult that she was dating him, that she trusted, about issues with that I was having, and I'm assuming she wanted him to like help me, but instead he like tortured me for it. And also prior to him, I dated a girl. This is what's funny. You know, I had this babysitter. Her name was Sharon, right? And my sister and I were the only 2 white kids that she had. And I don't know if this had anything. Her husband was cool, but I barely saw him at all. But and he was a cop actually. But we lived in Chesterfield at the time, and we were the only two white kids staying at this woman's house, right? And I loved the kids there, even her children. But this woman Sharon, and she was like religious, right? She was religious, like freak, right? Oh, she would like do like Bible studies and put like um stuff about Jesus on and things like that. Like I didn't understand it or anything back then, but like she'd abused me too, the same way he did physically. Like she would pull my hair, and I'm assuming my mom, when she drops me off, she would talk to her and confide in her about issues that I was having, and like they just all made it worse. They made it worse. Like she would like punish me. I can't remember in the things like she said to me, but like um I feel like she was saying, I don't know. I don't want to say she used anything on the Bible against me. I mean, it's very possible she did, but either way, looking back, and she was putting movies on. We're all children, right? And she was putting movies on like that we like shouldn't have been watching at the same time. But I just think it's funny because even though this woman had her Bible all the time and like supposedly loved God, she she hurt me all the time. And you would think that would be something that would like I don't blame God at all for that. I know that he had nothing to do with that. Like, and I feel like, like I said, my life is like one giant testimony. I feel like this is just that's like these are things that God wants me to share with people, like that to let them know, like, even though that happened to me, like it I don't blame God for that. And we can't, there are hypocrites out there who, we can't use hypocrites um to like not, I mean, they have nothing to do with Jesus, and he has nothing to do with them. Like I could use that if I want to, like to avoid growing and stuff, like, oh, God isn't real because his follower abused the crap out of me. But the truth is, she wasn't following him. Like, Jesus doesn't want his followers to treat people that way. That's the truth. We can all, and anyone can say that they follow Jesus. And, the fact is, if they're not doing what he says he wants us to do, then they're not. But and you got to keep that in mind. That's why you have to do your own research. You have to read the Bible. Like, God wants to form you a personal relationship with you. A personal one between you and him. That's why he gave us his word. You know, like he wants you to know him, and he wants to know you. He wants to teach you. Like, he wants to teach all of us. But it's funny, like, I never blamed God for that. And I never, like, even though, like, I specifically remember her being like a religious freak, like, and she treated me like that. Like, I know I never ever, it didn't, even though it stuck with me that she like always had a Bible and stuff like that. I never, it never made me like question, um, is this how Jesus is and wants his people to be? Because it's crazy. I always knew that, like, the I just felt like if Jesus was real back then like he wouldn't be this way. So these people are making up a guy and saying they're following him, and they're just acting crazy, like shady, but he's not real. When the fact is, he is real, and they're just not doing the things he wants them to do. Like, but um I was crazy, guys. Like, and like going back real quick to my relationships, I feel like my first long-term one was, dude, I was calling her a bitch and a slut and a hoe, and like, man, we got into arguments all the time. We were drinking, smoking weed all the time. We started having sex all the time. Like, it was bad. I cheated on her a couple of times. Like, man, it's bad, with the same girl a couple of times, and then with like different women, like physically and like virtually and verbally. Like, it was bad. I and like the friends I started hanging out with, like we were all I started smoking weed, smoking cigarettes, drinking. At some point started doing coke. I was on coke for a year, like hardcore. And prior to that I did it here and there, and then after I did it, and I what else? Hmm. I had really severe anger issues. Like I would get like, yo, I would try to be nice. I try to be like a nice person, right, and be like help out and stuff. And like sometimes I let things like build up, I guess, because I'll explode and I'll say the worst things. Like I'll tear somebody up emotionally, like the things that like were said to me as a kid on a nightly basis, like that, like it's messed up because like I hated that stuff, and I felt like I didn't deserve that, so nobody else deserves to hear that either. So I can't use that as an excuse to do that, even in like my weakest, most vulnerable moments. Like I can't do that. Like it's not right. But I was trying to think of and I got 3 DUIs. Like I used to drink a lot. I used to drink all the time. It's crazy. The best that I've ever done in my life is when I kept to myself. And like, even though I've been doing that now, like, for God, until I get to know Him more, until I do things that I want to do. Uh, when I did that, when I trained, like I trained martial arts and I've like had fights and stuff. If I trained and I didn't hang out with anyone, I always won, and I was like, I felt unbeatable. I felt invincible. Like that's how I feel right now. Like I'm so healthy. But I train a lot. Like I run, like, and I'm 33 and I feel like I'm at my prime. Like I'm stronger than I've ever been, but I've had a lot of fights that I was smoking cigarettes. I went to training once every 2 weeks sometimes, or a couple times a week. I was drinking, smoking weed. I wasn't even. I would go, guys. I would go to I would compete nationally. It's stupid. I was smoking cigarettes and drinking and smoking weed, like not getting enough sleep, fornicating. I it was bad, man. Like, and I won some of the fights, but that when I was doing that. But my point is, but I lost most of them, like because I didn't prepare. But and I won all the ones that like I didn't do that. I've never lost a fight that I actually trained for, like 150%. And but yeah, like I've been, I've in my relationships, like earlier on, like I said, my first one was super toxic. We argued nightly, like every day at some point. And the one after that wasn't much better. And she was cool, but and she was Christian, but not, she was lukewarm. She wasn't really a Christian. And and then like after that, like all my relationships improved, I feel like, but they were never, none of them were ever perfect or right, I would say. I don't know. I just feel like there are too many people out there who are seeking relationships that aren't what television is programming you to think they are, but this world is not like that. Like, you got to think, guys, like, this is a crazy world we live in. People die every day. You got to keep that in mind. People are insane. We're not, nobody's perfect and good. We can't ignore all the crazy shit that's happened and that is happening. Okay? You got, you can't expect people living in this world. What world do you live in? The world I live in, people die every single day. Okay? They overdose, they commit suicide. That's the world that I live in. What world do you live in? where your life is perfect and you're excluded from all this madness. Like, you gotta think, guys, like, you can't expect people to have flaws. You need to embrace your flaws. You need to, you know, we need, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, even after all these things that I've had, and like, I gave a few therapy suggestions, but that's a waste of money. You don't need therapy. All you need is Jesus, God's word, and you just need yourself, and you need to believe in yourself, and you don't need acceptance. Like, don't do things to please other people that keeps you from being yourself. Don't pretend to be anyone other than who you are. It doesn't matter what you've done, like, you need to use that and share it with people so that they know that they're not alone. Because, like, guys, nobody's perfect, but everyone wants to pretend that they are, okay? Like, that decreases your value. You're watering yourself down at that point. Like, that's boring. I don't want to date anybody perfect. You know why? Because I'm not. So I don't want to date anyone who is. Like, I'm not interested in that. I want to date somebody who's out of their fucking mind like me. But, let's not, like, tear each other apart. But, like, I want to know what, like, people's flaws are. I want to know what's going on in their heads, for real. So, like, because the point in relationships, guys, is to heal. Like, we're supposed to take care of each other, right? If you're gonna waste your life hopping from one relationship to the next and searching for someone to be with, don't, like, just talk about things that matter. Talk about ask them what's the worst thing they've ever done, or the most embarrassing thing they've ever done, or, like, come on, you got to be interesting. Don't waste your time pretending to be perfect to each other to find out you're not. Neither of you are, just to end and then do that again and again and again and again. Okay, we need to grow in our relationships, like in friendships too. Don't waste your time around people who are drinking and who got to drink and do drugs to, like, be happy, and they're not happy or miserable. Man, I used to hang out. My friends would drink all the time, and I would go pick them up from bars when everyone they were with left them hanging and I'm sober. I'd go pick them up. I'd be there for them. Everyone's ignoring them, and I didn't want to be, and it drove me crazy. And I'm like, I'm sitting there sober, trying to have a conversation with somebody who's wasted, telling them they can't do this anymore over and over again, all the time, and they would never remember it. Like, you can't do that to, like, if anybody is going through that, you got to let it go. Like, you can only do so much for people before they just take advantage of it and they bring you down. Like, you don't want to do that. But what I'm saying is, like, all the things that I've been through, if I can heal, and, like, even though I improved, I felt like I improved prior to the faith. God is he's only amplified that. Like, there's no excuse for anyone. Like I was saying, I had a woman who had a Bible who was hurting me as a child. And God he did not know her, and maybe he does now, and hopefully he does, and I forgive her. Like, it's whatever. Like, I forgive my stepfather, that's weak. People who do that kind of stuff is weak, and I was weak for letting that affect me and turn me into who I was. Don't become the things you hate, okay? We can't do that. That's hypocritical, remember? We got to avoid being hypocrites. And that's the whole thing about, like, judging and gossiping, and because if no one is perfect, no one is. Like, even if you pretend that you are, you're not. You're not. So, knowing you're not, how can you judge or gossip about anyone else when you're not perfect? You can't do that. And Jesus, God is the only one who is perfect, and He doesn't even. He's not judging. Well, He will when life is over, but right now He's not. Right now, we all have a chance to grow and be better people. Like sin is the problem, guys. Sin is the problem. Wickedness. God wants us to be good. There's nothing wrong with that. You can still be interesting and be a good person. Don't be that person that is like, I want a good person, but chases after people who abuse the shit out of you emotionally and verbally. Don't be that, because that's confusing. You're confused. Like you don't know what you want, and you like, guys, we are being conditioned not to value people who are good, and to like chase after people who don't give a damn about you, like, and they're doing the same thing. So think about it. Think about if you ignore someone who it might be good for you, right? And you're chasing after somebody who you might end up chasing after somebody who is not interested in you, and they're doing the same thing. You're interested in them, and then they're chasing somebody who isn't interested in them, and it's this loop, right? Like, that's how the karmic cycle works. You know, if you're gossiping about somebody, somebody's going to gossip about you. I mean, God's spirit is moving, and Satan is watching, guys. Like, we got to keep these things in mind. And if you think about that and you apply it to your life, like, there are things, I like, if I'm alone, like, I had pretty decent integrity before, but it wasn't solid. But now everything I do, even if I'm alone, like, I'm like, okay, I can't do this. Like, you have no idea how much that like changes your behavior and your thoughts. Like, you gotta fill your head with the word, and you gotta know that God is watching. And like, He wants you to be good. He wants us to be good. And it's a struggle, but the more work you put into it, the easier it gets. And you can't care what anybody else thinks about you. People who care what other people think about them are insecure. You can't be insecure and worry about what anyone else thinks about you. I mean, you can't. I mean, that you're insecure if you worry what others think about you. The only confident people are the ones who don't care what others think about them, and they're developing themselves. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, my opinion and God's opinion is the only opinion that matters to me. So I don't give a shit what anyone else thinks. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, you need to heal from trauma. Like, you need to spend time alone. You need to think about the things that you've been through, and you need to accept them. A lot of people don't talk about these things. They don't. I don't know. They suppress it. People do drugs and end up like me. Like, I ended up doing all kinds of things, and I had the worst anger. You have no idea. Like, maybe you do, but like, not anymore. It's good. But I hope you guys have a good day. This is the last video I'm gonna post for a little while. I got to do some stuff, but I'll start posting again. Y'all know. But have a good day, guys, and read the Bible, pray to God. Later.